What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Phaithful Phanatics show. For the second Monday in a row, it is a Victory Monday show. I am one half of your host here, Dylan Davis. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DylanJD98. And, of course, my co-host from Turf Talk filling in for Gin today, my man Scotty. Give him a follow on Twitter at Scotty John. We're streaming to you guys live through DSM Media on our Facebook, YouTube, and actually my Twitter page, because StreamYard and Twitter are giving us a little bit of issues with DSM Media's Twitter. But if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube and head on over to @TSM_media on Twitter. Today, we are joined once again by a very special guest, ESPN's Get Up very own Hembo, Sneaky Hembo, Mr. Paul Hembekides. How are you doing today?
I could not be better. I mean, a month ago, if you had told me the Eagles would be in the position they're in now, I would have told you were crazy based upon what we had seen. But I mean, this is the best kind of season to be a fan. Like, you go in with sort of like questionable expectations. Yeah. You hit a bit of a lull, and you're already thinking about next year. And lo and behold, the team just hits the same way we sort of hoped and expected they would. So right now, I'm riding high. Like, I'm not so worried about like the big picture noise. I'm just like sort of enjoying this a week at a time, watching our big people beat up little people on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, man. So you hit it right on. You hit the nail right on the head there. Eagles with a second straight victory over the New Orleans Saints, 40-29 yesterday at the Link. Their first win at the Link this season. I was lucky enough to be there. Scotty, got to see Scotty yesterday at the tailgate. Yeah, it was. I wasn't there on the home opener, but I would assume it was the loudest it's been since the home opener, or maybe the last play. The Link was jumping yesterday, and for good reason. But I got to pick your brain on a lot of things, man. So let's start with the two key names here when we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles' future. I've been very critical of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts all season long. I just wanted to see, growth and improvement, as every other Eagles fan has said. And early on, I wasn't seeing that. But over the course of, I guess, the last month, over the last 4 games or so, I found myself saying, like, after the game, I'd be like, no, that was Nick's best called game. No, that was Jalen's best game. And to me, when you're doing that week in and week out, that's showing consistent growth on a week-to-week basis. What have you seen over the last month of games or so from those two guys specifically? What's kind of changed in Nick Sirianni's game plan? Obviously, we know they're running the football now, but what else is going on between the dynamic of the play caller and quarterback lately?
Yeah, I'm seeing a head coach and play caller in Nick Sirianni who is doing what we called sports talk shows for the first month and a half of the season, begging him to do, and that is marry his sort of game plan and his in-game play calling with the strengths of his roster. So this is how I sort of saw the beginning of the season. Sirianni's a smart guy. You don't become a head coach in the NFL before you're 40 years old, unless you or for the most part, got the light on upstairs. But he is sort of like me in the sense that he is a football mind that is driven in large part by analytics. So he showed up and said to himself and said to his football team through his play calling, this is the best, or this is the most efficient way to score points. This is the best or most efficient way to move the football, to throw it with a high degree of frequency. That's true, at least in a vacuum. It's not true when you're dealing with essentially a rookie quarterback and an offensive line that run blocks like they're a 5-man battering ram. And it took him long enough to figure it out. But now that he has demonstrated that he's willing to sort of come off of his priors and adjust on the fly. So if we're going to give him a hard time about game planning it effectively and being stubborn early in the season, we likewise have to credit him for essentially being a master in the month of November. I mean, I guess the Lions game was the last day of October. But is there a coach in the NFL right now that has had a better month, that is coached a better 4 games consecutively than that guy has? I mean, the Eagles' offense is clicking as well as it possibly could. They're the best offense in the league during that time. They're averaging almost 3 points per drive. Over the last 5 weeks, Jalen Hurts is the top-ranked quarterback in the whole league. He's got a QBR of 75. And over the last 4 games, the Eagles have scored have rushed for 870 yards. Over the last 4 games, the Eagles have rushed for more yards than 7 teams have rushed for the entire season. They're essentially they're doing what college teams do. They're beating you up, and they're doing it with backup guards. So I am all in on the fact that he is leaning into the strengths of this roster. And look, we can argue until we're blue in the face about the merits of Jalen Hurts as a passer, and we probably will. both throughout the rest of the season and in the offseason as we're spinning this thing forward. But you have to, like, if you're going to sort of pick nits when it comes to the passing game, you also have to acknowledge that Jalen Hurts' mere presence and running ability has elevated the floor of this offense and given the Eagles a top 5 run game. I mean, probably even better than that. Right now it's the Eagles and the Colts. But Jalen Hurts is the biggest reason why the Eagles' run game is where it was, because for most of the stretch, Miles Sanders wasn't even a factor because he was hurt. And when he popped back yesterday, he couldn't keep the ball in his hands. So it is a function of shrewd play calling and the skill set of a quarterback who we are now maximizing. And even though it took us a while to get here, I say better late than never.
Yeah, man, I've questioned obviously his ability as a passer, and probably will continue to do so for a little bit longer until proven otherwise. But I've questioned how he can put a game away with his arm, and he didn't necessarily do it with his arm yesterday. But the Saints made it push back and made it a small comeback in the fourth quarter in the second half. It was still a double-digit lead at the time, but that move was Oklahoma-esque. Like you mentioned college football earlier, that move, that run to seal the game was something else. But I want to get back on Nick Sirianni for just a slight second. You talked about his play calling, and I wanted to talk about his preparation throughout the week. So, the Vegas game was really the tip of the iceberg for me at that time, just being so fed up with him and the play calling and what they do throughout the week. The team didn't even seem like they wanted to be there. It didn't even seem like they made the trip from Philly out west to Vegas. And then he's talking about flowers and roots and fertilizer and everything. And it's just making me hate it even more. But since then, Nick Sirianni has had these guys ready to play each and every week. But yesterday's game was special to me. And it was his most impressive from a preparation standpoint, because I understand it's still mid-November. There's still how many games left? 7 or so games left for the Eagles to play. But this game had a lot riding on it in terms of playoff expectations, playoff percentages. I saw your tweet earlier in the week between winning and losing going from like 40% to 11% for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And this team showed up in a big way yesterday. What have you seen the difference, over this 4-game streak in terms of preparation? Like, what do you think the difference is there? He's got these veterans really buying into him in a point of the season when I thought he could lose them very quickly.
Yeah, 2 things there. One, the Vegas game was frustrating, but the Vegas game was frustrating mostly because of the defensive game plan. At least that's sort of how that was a frustrating game because they just gave Derek Carr whatever he wanted. The truth of it is, Nick Sirianni runs the offense. Obviously, he oversees the whole thing, but he runs the offense. The Eagles have scored 21 points this year, more times than any team in the league. The Eagles offense, week to week, has brought it in a way that I don't know that we expected coming into the season. Like, that is a strength of this football team. They scored 21 points in all but one game this season. No team has done that, so chew on that one for a moment. The second thing is he demonstrated in the game plan for the Saints that he is more concerned or more focused on what his guys do well than what the other team does not. Here's what I mean. I did Miss Anelli's show on Thursday. I pointed this out. We all knew that the Saints had the number 1 run defense in the sport coming into yesterday.
Right.
We all knew that they were the best team by a long shot in defending the zone read. And Nick Sirianni did not give a rip. He ran it 50 times. They ran it 50 times against a team for which the game plan said you're going to have to mix and match. Like, I didn't think this was going to become a drop back game, but I thought Jalen would have to throw it 30 or 35 times, or at least drop back to pass 30 or 35 times to win. But that's what I really liked yesterday, is that he stuck to his convictions. He stuck to what the team has demonstrated they're really good at, and secondarily worried about what you're good or bad at. So, like, that's a really big deal, because when I look at these matchups every week, I try to identify strengths and weaknesses, obviously, for the opponent, to try and bring some information to light. And as I did my research on the Saints, I said to myself, I'm not sure the Eagles are going to be able to run the ball down their throat. That's the number 1 run defense in the league, and we've had it fairly easy given the quality of opposing defenses lately. What we saw yesterday is that the Eagles are legitimately great at something, and they're legitimately great at something significant enough that can be their identity. And they can go a really long way leaning into it. Now, I don't know that you can win a Super Bowl play in this way. At least no team's done it in a long time. But, like, to even have that conversation, I think shows how far this team has come in relation to where we expected they'd be at this point.
Yeah, so you mentioned, just the complete disappointment that the defense showed when they played against Vegas a few weeks ago. Obviously came out against Detroit the following week, was great. Came out against the Chargers. We saw sort of the same thing we saw against Derek Carr.
Yeah.
When we're talking about this Eagles defense, Jonathan Gannon, the scheme, is it just as simple as playing against bad quarterbacks that the defense all of a sudden looks awake at times? Or is this something within Jonathan Gannon's scheme and game plan where he's doing something different against mediocre quarterbacks compared to the good ones? Like, what are you seeing as far as that?
I'm seeing an average defense that plays to its level of competition, candidly. The Eagles defense is going to be an average unit this year. That's what they are. I mean, they have what I would describe as an excellent pass rush, or at least that's what the numbers suggest. Going into last week, at least, I've not seen the updated figures. The Eagles had the #1 pass rush win rate in the entire league. But it's hard to really tell sometimes because if the secondary plays so loose, the front could be doing its job and you can still not tell. I guess I'm not sure that's the best way of saying it, but that's what has frustrated me, is that the front four has often done its job, even without the benefit of the blitz, and the secondary has still let it go. So I, like you, want to see the Eagles defensive backs play the sticks a lot better. I don't want the Eagles to start playing, press man because they're not good at it. And when I did some research in front of the Broncos game, and like the Eagles are the worst team in the league when they try to press. The worst team. Like they don't do it often, but they're just impossibly bad at it when they do. But I think what's happened to the defense, at least in spurts, is sort of what happened to the offense early in the season, where the coach and the coordinators have decided, like, this is the best way to play football. Not this is the best way for our team to play football against this team. Look, the ability to limit explosive plays is a big part of playing defense, and the Eagles do that well. It is not the only thing that a defense should be worried about. Right. I'm willing to sacrifice an explosive play now and again to break up a 3rd and 5 on a slant route. That's sort of the trade-off you have to make. So I want the Eagles defense, as the season continues to progress, to play aggressive circumstantially. And if they can do that, pairing it with this pass rush, I think they can be good enough because, like, right now, like it or not, this is an elite offense. Like, you don't need the defense to be the 85 Bears to win football games. You need the defense to, generally speaking, allow field goals and once in a while come away with a takeaway. Like the offense over the last 4 games is an absolutely spectacular unit. And so long as you can play complementary in that regard, I think the formula has a good chance of working. Now, sure, you can get ripped alive by Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and other great quarterbacks, but like that's every team, that's every team. There's no question that Trevor Siemian and no Alvin Kamara, I know Michael Thomas, all that stuff helped the Eagles defense for sure. Right. But like to me, this is going to be a team whose bus is driven by the offense in the way that it dictates everything. And my hope is that the defense having the opportunity to not play 65, 70 snaps a game because they're running the football so effectively can play a little bit more aggressively in coverage.
Yeah, and you've kind of seen them, at least take advantage of the opportunities that are given. Yeah. You're seeing Darius Slay get a lot of touchdowns, big plays. So these guys, they're finding ways to win, and I think it's as simple as that. Which is
you guys remember when people said he was overrated last year?
Well, I mean, he was
killing him in Philly, man. So kind of a side note from the season so far and what's kind of happened over the last few weeks. Howie has also been very busy. He's been handing out extensions. I wanted to ask you about a very specific one in Dallas Goedert's extension. So he signed a 4-year, $57 million extension, $35 million guaranteed, making him the 3rd highest paid tight end in the NFL, if I'm correct there. What are your thoughts on that contract? Was that deserved? Is that something that he has to fulfill now? What are your thoughts in general on that?
Well, Pro Football Focus loves the guy. I think right now he's their number 2 graded tight end. Obviously, his volume of work is not, the same as Darren Waller or Travis Kelce or a player like that. But he's really effective within this offense because he operates an area of the field that none of the receivers can or the backs can. And he's also a reasonably good run blocker, which, as we've learned, is a pretty important thing here so we can play 3 downs. I like that Dallas Goedert a lot. And the Eagles have historically had pretty good luck identifying, developing tight ends. So, this is an area in which I definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. And so, that extension, along with a few of the others, feels to me a lot like 2016. Like the first year with, Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson, the Eagles were sort of taking the scraps left on Chip Kelly's roster and trying to identify the pieces that were going to be long-term answers here. And even though they didn't make many picks in that draft class, those guys have pretty much all hit. And so he deserves a lot of credit for it. I mean, Howie Roseman has taken more undeserved shots, I think, across the city than most anyone who is, with a track record like he has. I mean, if we're just going to be totally honest, he took a decimated Chip Kelly roster and within a year and a half built a behemoth. The 2017 team was good enough to win the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback and without their Hall of Fame left tackle, right? And he did that fast. What he's building right now is, for my money at least, pretty close to as impressive, considering what like the Carson Wentz dead cap charge has done to this roster. The Eagles are $60 million in with dead money right now. 60. So this is a roster that really had no chance to be deep. And yet right now, they're killing people. Howie deserves a lot of credit for what he's doing. So, I mean, that wasn't really what you asked. You asked about Dallas Goedert. And in short, I think what the Dallas Goedert contract makes a good bit of sense because I think he's trending towards being a top 5 player in this league at his position. But big picture, I mean, just because Howie Roseman doesn't look like us and he doesn't talk like us doesn't mean he's not super good at his job. Howie Roseman is an excellent general manager who, despite having missed on a bunch of draft picks lately, for the most part, is a better team builder than most any, at least within our division. And I think what he's building right now has the chance to be super special. I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis because we're still not sold on the quarterback like we were on Carson Wentz, say, in 2016, 2017, that range. But if you look up and down this roster, given how much they're going to be able to spend in the 3 draft picks coming down the pike in the first round, it's hard not to be really optimistic about what Howie is doing with this team.
Hembo's got me thinking over here. Hembo's got me thinking about all my Howie slander.
Dude, let's say it out loud, right? So the Carson Wentz extension, which we think was a Jeffrey Lurie thing, proved out to be a disaster. But he looks to have shedded that with a reasonable degree of success, considering he's going to get a 1 out of it. Right. And all the dead cap charges just this year in a theoretical rebuild. The Jalen Hurts pick, which was super unpopular at the time, right now he's a top 10 graded quarterback by PFF and is orchestrating the best run game in the NFL in large part because of his skill. Right, he has built good lines on both sides of the ball, despite having very little roster flexibility. Right. And in the 2018 draft class with Goddard and Maddox, that group all getting extensions. Now Josh Sweat is looking like a huge home run where like our biggest contention has been like, oh, he doesn't hit on receivers. Like nobody hits on every pick, right? What he's doing, this team is at least 1 year ahead of schedule, and they're going to have an unbelievable amount of cap space. They're going to have 3 1s, and Jalen Hurts has $3.5 million on his contract over the next 2 seasons from a cap perspective. So if they decide to ride or die with this kid, the Eagles are going to be the Seahawks at the back end of Russell Wilson's rookie contract if Howie can hit on the first round picks and spend wisely in free agency. Like I think what the Eagles are doing now is super impressive, given the issues on the roster, given the fact that we know they wouldn't have the depth that they've had in the past. I think when you spin this thing forward, there are very few teams in the NFL that have more going for them entering this offseason.
Damn, Hembo, you got me pumped up for the offseason and going forward.
Did I lie one time?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's the truth.
It's saying something because I'm not a Howie Roseman guy myself, and you got me a little excited over here and thinking about it. But one last question for you regarding this Eagles segment, and let's stick to this year.
Okay.
How do you think they finish the rest of the season? Obviously, we know what the schedule is: Washington twice, Giants twice, Jets, Dallas. How do you think they finish the season? And then kind of like, do you think they will make, not can they, obviously they can, but do you think they make the playoffs? And you mentioned it earlier, and I had another question about it, but throw it all in there. How far can this style of offense get you? You mentioned you probably can't win a Super Bowl with it, but can you win Can you win 2 playoff games with it? How far can this run heavy, run first team kind of take you?
If the playoffs started tomorrow and the Eagles were in it, you can't tell me with any degree of certainty that they couldn't beat anyone in the NFC. I'm just flat out. Like we've already seen them lose to Tampa, but Tampa's struggling right now. They just lost to Washington and New Orleans. Green Bay just lost on the road to Minnesota and looks like they're gettable.
Rams struggling.
Cowboys have laid 2 eggs out of their last 3. The Rams look like something of a paper tiger, and the Cardinals are doing it, but we've not seen their coach or their quarterback do it in a big moment. Like if the playoffs started today, I'm not like the Eagles wouldn't be favored against every team in the conference, but like there's no team that I'd say like, oh, they got no shot against them. Stylistically, the reason I think the Eagles could have a good bit of success in the playoffs should they get there, which I think they'll get there, is because what they do travels. Like if you can run the football with a high degree of effectiveness and possess the ball for 35 minutes a game, and like the outcome of those games will be determined by whether or not they can build a lead at all in the first quarter. Like the Eagles aren't going to be able to come back 17-0 against the Packers or the Buccaneers. They just don't have that kind of artillery. But they also have a style of play that all of those teams have a tough time defending because those teams, like most teams, have spent the last 5 years building their defense to combat the proliferation of passing in the NFL, right? So, like, there's 5 and 6 defensive backs on the field constantly. We don't have these monster nose tackles occupying the middle of defense anymore for the most part. And so the Eagles are zagging while everyone else is zigging. And while, like, sure, the Buccaneers and the Rams and Cardinals, the Packers, those teams are better. But from a matchup perspective, like, it doesn't matter who's better. It matters who matches up better. And the Eagles, for my money, can offer those teams. Like, look at what happened to Buffalo yesterday. Buffalo's defense is ridiculously good. They're still the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL through yesterday, despite, the Colts scoring 41 points. So the Eagles' style of play I actually think is pretty dangerous. Now, at some point, they're going to have to throw the football, and I'm not sure Jalen Hurts is going to be in position to be able to do that effectively. To me, it sort of feels like 2018, 2019 Ravens-y, for lack of a better term. But look, if they make it that far, then I don't think any of us should be complaining. Given the remaining schedule, I think between the Eagles, the Niners, and the Vikings, 2 of those 3 teams are going to make the playoffs. I'm going to bet on the Eagles and the Vikings based upon the quality of opponents the Eagles are finishing with, and the fact that I think the Vikings are a lot better than their record would indicate. But obviously, if the Eagles wind up with the same record as the Niners, San Francisco has that head-to-head from that ugly game earlier in the season. So I say they make the playoffs, and if they do, they can certainly win games. Like, again, a lot could change between now and the end of the year.
Right.
Well, like, if I told you the tournament started today, like, who's playing better than the Eagles right now over the last month?
No, and the offensive numbers and the points per game over the last 4 and the rushing yards per game over the last 4 are astronomical right now. Yeah. So it's going to be very exciting. I'll tell you what.
Even on balance, like, that's a common thing that I'm hearing people say. But right now, the Eagles have the number 8 scoring offense in the NFL for the entire season.
Yeah.
And they're averaging 27 a game. They're averaging as many points as the Rams are. So, like, yes, what is happening lately is very encouraging.
Right.
But like I said earlier, these guys hit 21 every game. Like, this is an offense that is, like, bordering on elite, even if you take the whole season, the whole body of work, and blend it into what's going on lately.
Yeah, I can only imagine what Jalen Hurts' arm would look like if he didn't have Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor and Greg Ward and J-Jaw that he had to throw to every week. But I'll tell you what, man, before we wrap up and get to some Phillies talk with you, not that I'm back and forth. I'm not 1 foot in, 1 foot out with this team. I'm always ready for this team to make the playoffs. But a couple weeks ago, I was talking to Scotty and Gint, and I was like, dude, this team statistically are still in a playoff run. And to me, at the time, they were such a bad team. And I was like, well, why? Like, I'm so out on this team. And here we are. I'm at the game Sunday. I'm fired up with 70,000 Eagles fans. And now I'm ready to make a playoff run. So it's been a hell of a year.
And by the way, I'm going to Eagles Giants in the Meadowlands this weekend. My wife is a Giants fan.
Oh boy.
She comes from, like, a long line of Giants fans, as in, like, her grandfather had season tickets at the Polo Grounds. Like, I'm talking like 50s. So there's a lot of potential bad blood here. I'm just hoping that the Eagles win. I don't get beat up in the concourse, and then I'm still married. It's Sunday at 5:00. So that's if all those things can hit, I'll hit that parlay.
Are you, like, you sport your team at opposing teams, like, stadiums? Are you gonna wear a jersey?
I wear the black Dawkins 20 on the road. Like,
sported that yesterday.
Let's be honest. Like, a third of the fans up at the Meadowlands will be Eagles fans. They travel well. They'll scour StubHub and the like. So I won't be the only one for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of my fandom. Now, I'm not so sure I'd bring my girl down to Philly rocking the Eli Manning uni. Or at least I might have to chauffeur her to the restroom. But I'm not afraid of taking blows from any Jersey guys. That's for sure.
There we go. All right, man. Let's move on to our Phillies portion. And just quick thoughts. It's a very open conversation here. Thoughts on Bryce Harper's MVP award, and where does this, like, personal season rank in terms of all-time, like, Philly personal seasons? Like J-Roll's MVP season, Ryan Howard's, what was that, 50 some home runs the one
58
year?
and 149 in 07,
Yeah, so, like, where does this Harper season rank compared to all-time Philly great seasons?
Well, it's better than Rollins' MVP season, and it's better than Howard's MVP season for sure, because his exploits at the plate were, I mean, we're talking like Mike Schmidt level
Yeah.
production. I mean, he was an absolute monster. I mean, he was an absolute tank. And the fact that the Phillies were even in it the last week of the season is a testament to his greatness. I tweeted last week that the Phillies squandered a Hall of Fame season from Bryce Harper, and I'm still not over it. Like when the season ended, I was honestly kind of pissed off, and then I was reminded how pissed off I was when I watched him cry when he won the MVP award, thinking to myself like, how much differently this would look if Adam Hazley wasn't playing in center field for this team, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if someone was willing to get a freaking hit the second half of the season, I think putting everything into context, it is one of the very best Phillies seasons of my lifetime. And if you look at the totality of the franchise, I mean, it's up there with Steve Carlton's 30 wins, near 30 win season, and certain individual seasons Schmitty had, and like if you go way back in the day. Chuck Klein had some insane seasons in the 30s. Like I'm talking like it's in the top 10 for a franchise that has been around forever. Obviously, the fact that this team disappointed around him collectively is a major indictment. And that's what I want to focus on here because like to the degree with which we sort of grade out his greatness, I think is somewhat subjective and arbitrary. But what is incredibly clear is that the Phillies had Bryce Harper didn't even produce most value on the team. That was Zach Wheeler. Between he and Wheeler, they produced something like 13 or 14 WAR, and they still barely scraped the surface of being a 500 team. It is almost impossible. The front office this year did a worse job than it did in most any year under Matt Klentak, and that's because you had what should have been a Cy Young season from Zach Wheeler. The fact that Corbin Burns won it is an abject joke, and you had an MVP Hall of Fame type season from Bryce Harper. And that's the best you could do. Like that's the best you could muster up. And you even sort of went for it at the trade deadline by trading for Ian Kennedy and Kyle Gibson, and which I liked at the time.
Yeah.
You had the easiest schedule in the second half of the season, as we talked about before, and that's all you can muster up. To me, the incompetence of the front office, sort of illustrated through the inability for this team to hit or catch the ball, is a complete and utter embarrassment. And if I were Bryce Harper, like I don't want to even say this out loud because I don't want to. Just in case he's listening, Bryce, avert your eyes. He's well within his rights to ask for a trade from this sorry franchise right now because what we have done around him is an absolute joke. Bryce Harper we are lucky to have him. He is an all-time great coming off of collectively 3 all-time great seasons. I mean, at least as a hitter. I mean, he has been phenomenal, like way better than people realize, at least nationally in a Phillies uniform. And they haven't scraped any sort of relevance. I mean, Bryce Harper has gone from being like the most famous person in baseball to an afterthought. Like we don't even talk about him on the national shows anymore. Like that's how incompetent this front office is. It's impossible to believe. I mean, if the Phillies just like aggregated online rankings for prospects, they would draft better than they've done. And look, it's only year one under Dombrowski, but when you have all-time great seasons from players you're paying a lot to, and you can't muster any semblance of success otherwise in what was the worst division in baseball. Look, I mean, I don't know why this is still so fresh for me. I guess maybe when I was reminded how good he was last week, that's sort of where my head's at. But this is an absolutely pivotal offseason for this front office. Of that, there's no question. And if I'm Bryce Harper, like I've earned the equity now to walk into Dave Dombrowski's office and if not demand stuff, at least ask for stuff because I have done my part. Like I've done my job. Like he can effectively pull an Aaron Rodgers and say like, look, I have built enough equity here with you guys in the front office, with the fan base, and it's very clear that you're not good at your job. So let me help you out. Now, I don't love the idea of allowing a player to have that kind of say, but I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, he and Zach Wheeler just had the best hitting and pitching season in all of baseball, and this team still stunk. It's impossible to believe.
Well, that was my next question was what were your thoughts on Zach Wheeler getting beat out by Corbin Burns? But I heard the pain in your voice, so I already know how you're feeling on that one.
I mean, Corbin Burns is a relief pitcher. Like that. What I mean, Zach got like 5 more games worth of outs than he did, as you saw. So I mean, that's I love analytics more than anyone probably. This is an example of us taking it way too far. Like ultimately, a pitcher's job is to get people out. And Zach Wheeler effectively did not win the Cy Young Award because the Phillies bullpen was so bad, and then his manager had to rely on him to get outs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings that Corbin Burns' manager did not ask him to get because they had a real bullpen. Like they had people that could throw 90 miles per hour in the bullpen that could occasionally miss someone's bat. The Phillies had none of the above. Like the Phillies bullpen was, for the second year in a row, an absolute disgrace, and Zach Wheeler had to pay the price for that. Even so, he should have won the award over Corbin Burns. If you compare their stats in the first 6 innings of games, Wheeler was better than Corbin Burns was. I mean, he essentially lost the Cy Young Award because the Phillies bullpen was so bad. That's another one of these sort of offshoots of the front office just being impossibly bad. Like I'm going to root for this team just as hard as you guys are. But like you can't. Like I sort of compare it to what the Angels experienced in previous years with Mike Trout. When Mike Trout was producing like 10 more a season, and they couldn't even sniff the playoffs. Like if you're gifted this quality of player, whether or not like, and this is not even a player that Dave Dombrowski signed. Neither was Zach Wheeler. Then how on earth are you squandering seasons this good? It's so incredibly frustrating. It's so impossible. He obviously deserved to win the award, and the Phillies are an absolute disgrace.
All right, man. Last question for you before we get you up on out of here.
Unbelievable.
You mentioned Bryce demanding this, and that.
Yeah.
What's Hembo's wish list? Do you have a wish list? What's a great offseason to you? Obviously, Marte's name is being linked back to the Phillies as they were looking to get him at the deadline, but he wasn't moved. I saw the clip, as probably you did, of Schwarber's name being thrown out there. They're in there. They want a closer, Kimbrel, Hader. They want relief pitching. They want everything. They need a lot. So what is Hembo's wish list? What is Hembo's real perfect offseason?
Okay, so the ideal offseason is one in which you can find value in a bunch of different areas, because as we learned this year, the Phillies' problem is not that they don't have great players. The problem is that they don't have anywhere near enough good players. So I like Starling Marte a lot. I think he answers a lot of questions in center field for us. He can hit leadoff. You can offer him a short, sort of back front-loaded 3-year, $60 million kind of contract. He can be your leadoff hitter. He can go get it in center field. I think he would make a big difference. I would sort of test the waters on Trevor Story, who I think you have a chance to get on a 1 or 2 year prove it kind of deal, because the market is so saturated with shortstops already. If he says he's not interested in that kind of thing, then I'm good passing, but that's someone I'm absolutely interested in. I mean, if at all possible, Didi Gregorius is not my shortstop next year. He is probably the worst everyday player in baseball, impossible to root for, and can't catch at all. Like, he makes Derek Jeter look like a good defensive shortstop. Matt Chapman of the A's is someone that could be traded. I'm really interested in, because you're sort of buying low off of 2 sort of down years, at least by his standards. He improves the quality of your defense a lot. In this ballpark, he'd hit a lot better than he did in Oakland. I don't think the price tag would be astronomical. Chris Taylor of the Dodgers is someone I'm interested in, because he can play short in a pinch. He can play all around the diamond otherwise. He's probably going to on-base 340 for you, hit probably 5th or 6th, occupy that spot in your lineup. You gain value by all of his versatility, and he's not a name brand like, for example, Chris Bryant is. And I think they're approximately the same player. Like, I think Chris Bryant's, just a pair of Nikes, whereas Chris Taylor is not. But, the expression "you get what you pay for" I don't think applies here, because of all that he provides from the perspective of his versatility. I think the starting pitching is in reasonably good shape. So I think what you need to do is attack the pitching staff with volume when it comes to the bullpen. I really like Kendall Graveman, who pitched for the Mariners and the Astros last year. I think that breakout is real. There's Corey Knebel. There is Jose Urena. There is, if you're looking to spend a little bit more money, Bryce Iglesias, who I'm not as interested in because he comes with the qualifying offer. What I'm saying is, I think you attack relief pitching with volume. Like, you take shots. The Phillies are obviously not good at identifying individual people in that role. So if you take 5 shots, you hit on 3, you improve your bullpen in bulk there. Obviously, I just named a lot of things, but what the Phillies need is a lot of things. So I'm not interested in doing the mega contract thing, because you already have Harper and Wheeler making a lot of money, right? And Real Muto too. But I am interested in, if you can collect somewhere between 3, 4, and 5 good players on somewhat reasonable contracts, even if you have to exceed the luxury tax threshold in the meantime. To me, that's the best plan of attack for the Phillies, because if you can sort of raise the floor of your roster with players that can produce 2 or 3 WAR, that's the way to go. Otherwise, you have a bunch of replacement level players and a couple superstars, and where you wind up is 500 like they did last year.
Yeah, and real quick, I know you mentioned obviously Matt Chapman at third base, and you mentioned getting Didi out of the shortstop. So you mentioned the left side of the infield.
Yeah.
Do you foresee Alec Boehm back to being an everyday player next year for the Phillies?
Probably, because they're going to add the DH in the National League, and I think that's a good enough reason to keep him and Rhys Hoskins around. I also want to see what Kevin Long can do with Alec Boehm's impossibly long swing. So, like, he showed as a rookie that he has great command of the strike zone and good plate coverage and all that stuff. I mean, on base 400 and over 50 some games as a rookie. That's not fake. The swing is the issue, and that's why I think the new hitting coach can make a big difference. I'm not selling low on Alec Boehm. The only way I'm trading Alec Boehm is if I'm getting as much as I would if I had traded him a year ago. That's how I feel about Boehm. I would be willing to trade Hoskins, I think. I'm also curious how close to ready Bryson Stott is. So Bryson Stott just ripped up the Arizona Fall League. He's a I think a stud shortstop who might be able to play up right away. if he can be ready to be the Phillies opening day shortstop, again, that might be optimistic, but he's a college player, so he's got a lot of reps under his belt in that sense. I think there's a chance he could beat out Didi in that role, and the Phillies wouldn't need to sign a shortstop. So that's why I think the Trevor Story thing is something of a pipe dream. But again, to circle back, I want to see what Alec Bohm can do with a new hitting coach, and away from third base, he just can't play there, or at least he shouldn't play there. But the National League DH rule, which I think is definitely coming, helps the Phillies out a lot. But I'm not interested in Kyle Schwarber even so. Like, I still don't think he – I mean, if you get him for, like, on the cheap, but the Phillies need to get younger, more athletic, and better on defense. He's not young, nor athletic, nor good on defense. So, besides from that, I think he'd be a great fit.
All right, man. Well, everything you said, everything you hinted at, hopefully are all signs that point towards a busy and fun and exciting offseason for the Phillies, and a busy and fun and exciting offseason for the Eagles when we get to that point as well. Oh, yeah. But Hembo, again, man, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Phaithful Phanatics show. Guys, go give him a follow on Twitter if you don't already, at Paul Hembo. And we'll be in touch and hopefully get you back on here soon to chop up more Philly sports.
Later, boys. Go Birds.
Later. Go Birds. Look at that. You can take Hembo out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of Hembo.
There we go.
Go Birds on his way out. Later, brother. All right. As always, good stuff from ESPN to get up. Paul Hembekides, Scotty. And we got some time to spare. So that that means me and you get to talk about the Birds. That's what we get. First of all, hold on. I got to change the vibes. I got to change the vibes.
You got to change the vibes. Get it right.
I got to get this background out of here.
Funny, I was watching Get Up this morning because I knew Hembo was going to be on today.
Yeah.
And I saw the little tangent with Dan Orlovsky, basically, declaring Jalen Hurts as the guy, saying he's himself. So yeah, there's big talk on Get Up this morning about the Birds, which it's nice to finally have some positive, right? Some positive talk surrounding Philadelphia. So I'm excited, man.
It's different, ain't it? How much we just talked about changing the vibes up on the show. How much have the vibes changed from a month ago surrounding this team? Scotty, I'm sitting here talking to you like, bro, I don't care if they make the playoffs. This team is bad. They suck. I don't even care if they play the Cowboys in the first round. I don't even know how I would get excited for it. I'm at the game Sunday. Meeting. They again layeth the smacketh down on the New Orleans Saints, and here they come, fighting for a playoff spot. We can't, we're gonna talk Birds, but I do got to talk to you about it. I watched this. Me and George Ryder was over last night, and we had this stream. We had that game streaming on his laptop, so we saw it before it got all put out on social media and clipped up.
Kudos to you guys for watching the Pistons and Lakers game.
It was on a laptop. It was on a laptop with the red zone still on. So chill out. That wasn't over football, but there was some money in that game, so we had to have it on. Insane to watch that unfold, dude. Like, I don't know. You didn't see all of it in the clips that was put out.
Yeah.
Scotty, that went on for, I'm not kidding you, 6 minutes or so. Like 5-6 minutes of like trying to restrain him. They took him back. There was at least 2 or 3 times where they were like 5 people had him. He started to calm down. They released their grip, and he took off running again. Then he goes into the locker room. Like, he goes down the tunnel towards the locker room.
Yeah.
And you hear people go nuts because he broke loose. And he went down the tunnel to try to come around the other end by the Lakers bench, but he never got there. I guess they were able to stop him. Bro, he tried to go around the tunnel and get to them that way. So all the Lakers players ran over towards their tunnel to wait for him. Dude, yeah, it was a prime WWE moment.
What was he gonna do? Like, murder LeBron? Like,
I don't know.
Relax,
I don't know.
bro. You're about to get kicked out the league.
Yeah, like, and here's the thing. We can't even like it was just. I don't know. It was stupid to see, but it was like crazy to see and entertaining.
He was like leaking as well. Like, he was bleeding so much. Like,
but here's the thing.
It didn't look that serious. You know what I mean?
I just want to get your thoughts though on what caused it to happen, and I want to get your thoughts on something else. Now, listen, Isaiah Stewart is 9,000 times the size of me and would bounce my head off the floor 150 times before I could say stop. Okay, but. If you really want to go back and watch the video, he don't get tough and amped up until he's got people between. Because if he really wanted a piece of Bron, Him and Bron
He
were
was
face
right
to face
there.
for a couple seconds. Nothing
I know,
happened
man.
until people stepped in, got in between them, and then he started, get off me, I'm going after him. If you wanted your licks with Bron, you had your chance to get your licks with Bron. Let's put that out there first and foremost. Secondly, now, LeBron should be suspended. I do want to get your thoughts. Do I think it was intentional? No, I don't think he meant to punch a dude in the face and have him leaking from his eye and get stitches. But LeBron closed fist swung. I don't know if he knew it was the dude's face, if he was trying to put it in his chest, whatever. Closed fist swung and ended up punching the dude right here. I mean,
yeah, I mean, he's got to be suspended, man. The way I look at it is I try to look at it in roles reversed, especially when you're dealing with such a big name like LeBron. If Stewart did that to LeBron, would Stewart be suspended? Definitely, right? Like if you have LeBron
games, bro.
Yeah, it would be multiple games, right? Like that would be considered an act of violence in a sense, right? Like,
wait. No, I'm not cutting you off, but I did see this.
I did see this as well. I peeped the comment.
Yo, that video is hilarious.
It is, man. I saw that early this morning. But, just kind of what you were talking about there, the fake toughness of the NBA is just it's so hilarious, man. Yeah, no, and that's the other thing. I mean, that's something we didn't even get to yet, but everybody online like saying that LeBron isn't like, he didn't do that on purpose. He's not this dirty. He did. He's done some crazy stuff. Let's not forget who injured Joel Embiid's back last season. Yeah. But no, just as far as like the fake tough guyness in the NBA, it's so hilarious because we saw the same thing a few weeks ago with Jokic and Jimmy Butler and that whole mess in Denver and Miami. It's like, Jimmy, you are standing right there when Jokic slams this guy to the ground, right? Like pushes him into the ground.
You want to wait till there's 50 people in between to say, come get them, bro.
Meet me in the parking lot. Like, you're not going to fight in the parking lot. If you were going to fight, it was going to happen right then and there, and that's the only place that it was going to happen. Right. So it's
I'm just being serious. Again, this come on, I'm a quarter the size of Isaiah Stewart. But, stop with the fake. Again, you had your chance to get your licks with Bron. You were nose to nose with him for about 5 seconds before anyone stepped in between. 8 people grab you, and now it's get off me. I want my licks, bro.
It's like, is it because he started bleeding and he just got you know what I mean? He's like, man, I'm bleeding,
adrenaline's a weird thing, and I'm sure when he was pissed off, more people grabbing him and people yelling probably escalated the situation, and it made him more mad.
You had Westbrook out there,
the clip of Russ finding out he caught a tech because he said he didn't know he got it. Did you see his post-game press conference?
No, I didn't see it.
Russ didn't know he got teed up in the game until afterwards, and they asked him about it. He said, "Who got a tech?" And and the next person asked a question, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm still trying to figure out when I got a tech, when I got teed up." Yo, it was hilarious. Yeah, he's square up, bro.
Square it up, dude. What are we doing here? But
yeah, and by the way, none of the rest of the Pistons wanted any problem. The entire Lakers bench was ready to square up. DeAndre Jordan, Russ, AD, Melo said there's a video of Melo saying he ain't coming over here, nothing like that. And then the Pistons are all just stop.
And Melo just seems like the type of guy you just don't mess with, bro. I don't know. He's just but it's hilarious though, that whole situation. The NBA has been wild this year. I mean, you had Miles Turner and Gobert. Bro.
How did Cade Cunningham get the job of trying to hold him back?
Rookie, man. Yeah. First round pick. He could have got injured.
It's all assistant coaches. Is it Casey? Dwayne Casey, he's the head coach, right?
Yeah.
Dwayne Casey's I think so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
He's trying to hold him back. Players are getting involved, right? Security's over there. And then all of a sudden, after the second time he got loose, here comes this little balding white security guard or whatever, with glasses and a mask on, and he's literally up to Isaiah Stewart's chest, belly button area, and he's just looking at him, holding him. I'm like, bro, you better get out of there now.
Get out of his way.
Before you get ran the F over.
You let LeBron deal with that. That's his mess, bro.
Facts. Facts. And then LeBron goes to Twitter to talk about it. Like, apparently Shams reported, tweeted that Bron tried to get his phone number to say that it was an accident afterwards, but who knows? I'm glad you commented about that, because that was a fun little piece to talk
Bron
about.
doesn't want that beef with that big beefy.
Yeah. But let's talk about the Eagles yesterday, Scotty.
Yeah.
First of all, where did you and Parcero and everybody head to after the
Oh man, I was gonna actually tell you, last night I was like totally out of it. We went to we ended up going to Chickies and Pete's after we left the tailgate. After we met up with you, we walked through, did a little bit of recording, and then we headed over to Chickies and Pete's for the game. We stayed there probably until like 7 p.m., but we were just over there drinking and enjoying the game. But yeah, it was a fun day, right? Like you got to go to the game. We were down in South Philly with everybody, so that was.
I'll tell the viewers something. Fun. Scotty and I got handed 2 Jello shots by a group of 8-year-old cheerleaders, fundraising mothers. They're walking around raising money for the cheer squad or whatever.
Yeah.
And the moms are handing out Jello shots, and this the purple ones, Scotty, were not made correctly, because
they were all
those viewers who aren't the age of 21 who have never had a Jello shot. The point is, it's a blend, and it turns into basically Jello, and you eat it out of the cup, right? When there's too much liquor in said Jello shot, it doesn't freeze correctly, and it basically stays liquidy. Well, me and Scotty didn't take a Jello shot. We just took a straight shot, and that started the day off a little bit more fun.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, man, I just had to see what you guys did, but exciting game. And I guess we can just start there. From start to finish, this team, as I mentioned, the Hembo really showed up. And actually, Scotty, that's where I want to start. There was a point in Hembo's response to one of my questions that really made a light bulb go off, because it's something you and I would talk about on Turf Talk all the time at the beginning of the season, specifically on defense. He talked about it offensively and how Nick Sirianni's attacking teams with the run and what they do well. But I related it to the team as a whole and what we used to discuss. Good team. Remember in the beginning of the year when Gannon and this team would just focus on trying to take away or slow down or stop the other team's strengths instead of playing to your own strengths. And good teams don't do that. And all of a sudden, a month or so goes by, and the Eagles are playing to their own strengths. Not playing, like he said, the Saints come in with the number 1 rush defense. Does Nick Sirianni look at that after the last 3 or so weeks of the Eagles having great success on the ground and say, you know what, I got to go away from my game plan because they're good enough to stop me? No, they're not good enough to stop me. I'm going to show you why they're not the number 1 run defense. I'm going to show you that with a running back coming off of the IR, with a running back that was on the practice squad a couple weeks ago, and missing my 2 starting guards. And they run the ball down the Saints' throat. That was my first major takeaway from the interview in yesterday's game. Sticking to your guns. The fact, Scotty, that he's adjusted so much over the last month. He has shown me growth that I think I would have been okay seeing throughout the course of 18 weeks this year if it was steady growth. And the fact that it wasn't for 7 weeks and I was out and I was done with him and I didn't think he could be the future, head coach and play caller of this team. He's shown me so much in a month that if it was spread out evenly over the year, I could have said, okay, he could be the guy, because he's shown that I learned from my mistakes. I've learned my players. I understand and see what they do well on the football field, and I'm going to put them in the best position to succeed week to week. Yeah. And Nick Sirianni, yet again, Scotty, called his best game of the season, and we continue to say that after every week.
Yeah, no, and I get your point there, because Hembo hinted at it as well, and it's exactly what I have written down here. The Eagles, they came out, they ran for 242 yards on the ground against the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. That speaks for itself. People were coming into this game saying the Eagles wouldn't be able to run the ball against the Saints. They would have to, throw more. They would have to kind of get a little unbalanced against a tough rushing defense. And it didn't happen. The Eagles stuck to their guns. They did what they felt they could do. And you just got to commend Nick Sirianni, like you said, for trusting his team and understanding what they do well. You can see the run, or not the run, but the offensive line is incredibly more engaged right now. You saw Mailata getting into Davenport's face. Davenport is a premier pass rusher in the NFL. And you have Mailata so fired up, he's pancaking this guy into the ground. And you can just see the team is heavily engaged. Landon Dickerson, these guys like to run block. They like to get in the defense's face and push forward. And what more can we do, in that game to impress and to show this team's identity? Like, what more could you ask the Eagles to do? How much better could they be at rushing the football? They very well may be, in that they are statistically right now with the Browns and the Ravens of the world, the premier rushing teams. The Colts as well, I would say, are up there with Jonathan.
And this
Taylor.
isn't fully healthy.
This isn't fully healthy. We have two backup guards. Miles Sanders just came back off of IR. We've played without Brandon Brooks this entire season. So to see this team really just forcing and imposing their will, my only thing, as I look back on everything, and it is what it is. Hindsight's always, it's always going to be very clear. But I just wish we would have done this from the start of the season. Just giving Jalen Hurts that comfortability to grow. It makes me think, if we were this run-first team against the Kansas City Chiefs, could we have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs? Could we have beaten the Niners? Shit, could we have beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We don't know. At this point, when you're seeing some of these teams lose to teams like Washington football team, we had opportunities, and now I just hope we can take advantage of the ones in front of us, right? Like we just hope that we can continue this, and I don't see anything in the future that should stop us from doing that. I look at every single matchup that we have. There is no number one rushing defense coming to play Philadelphia the rest of this season. It was Tampa Bay, and then it was New Orleans. What other team is that successful stopping the run? There's none in the way. And I think the Eagles can just, continue to do what they're doing and play it out. I think they, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win out over the last 7 games. Of course, I think there will be a stinker in there at some point. But as far as really making a playoff push, I really don't see why, as long as they stick to their identity.
Scotty, it is just nuts to me, though, that all the Facebook group people that were saying, "Oh, this team's going to win 10 straight and they're going to finish 11-6 or 10-7," and it's like, the fact that it actually may happen, don't get me wrong, I'm extremely excited about it, but it's like the reason they were saying those things they didn't have good explanations as to why the Eagles could win these games. It was the blind fandom. Even after they got their ass kicked to Vegas, they were still going to win 10 in a row. You know what I mean? And it's just like, now that actually may happen. It's just so funny how it works. But the thing I like the most about Nick Sirianni is how much he's sticking to his guns right now with his strengths, Scotty. Because there was at a point in time yesterday where, he ran the ball a couple plays in a row, and then it's working, and then he did it 2 more times, and it's like it didn't work. And you hear the fan kind of groan, and it's like now they want to see a pass. Yeah. And he don't care because I'm going to keep running the ball down your throat. And Jordan Howard, bang, hits a gap, and he's up the middle for 15 yards.
Love to see that.
Exactly. So, I'm not saying be so stubborn and stick to your guns like he was earlier in the year with the passing game and not adjust when you're not doing it correctly. But when something's working, the beautiful thing is when you see it not work for a play 2 or 3 in a row, that doesn't mean, oh, shit, I can't run the ball anymore. No, he's going to keep doing it and imposing his will. I want to talk about Jalen Hurts for a second, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to lie. He, from a passing perspective, he was underwhelming to me. Being there live, me and you talk about all the time. Seeing when you're at the game and you sit up top and you just see things develop. Scotty, he had the one where Miles Sanders was wide open at the 5-yard line, and I don't know what the view was on TV. Scotty, he was open for about 7 seconds. No one near him, and Jalen just keeps running. Then there was times he slid 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage instead of just flicking the ball out of bounds when he's running out of bounds. He missed a couple plays, so he didn't look too smooth from a passing perspective. He was 13 of 24, 147 yards, took 3 sacks, right? But he's playing clean as of late. He's not turning the ball over, which allows Scotty that run-heavy, that run-first offense to be so effective. Because when you're able to chew up clock like that and possess the ball more than your opponent is, you don't want to give them short fields the next possession when their offense hasn't been on the field in so long.
Yeah.
So Jalen Hurts is playing clean. He's not turning the ball over. But here's what impressed me most about the kid yesterday. For as much as he didn't impress me in the one area, I really want to see him win a game, because at the end of the day, that is what it's going to take in the long term to be the franchise quarterback. He found a way to put the game away. He found a way, like I mentioned earlier, with that finishing touchdown run, Scotty. That was disgusting. That move on, I forget who the DN was on that play, but he put his foot in the ground, and he shoulder shimmied. Oh, see you. Cut back across the field and was able to put it away with a 20-plus yard TD run. He found a way to win the game, and they were already winning. It's not like this was a come from behind, touchdown here. But the Saints were applying pressure. They had scored on 3 or so straight possessions. They had cut it to a 2-possession game. And here he comes, 8 or so minutes left, and he puts the game out of reach. And that's what I thought. That's what I found most, positively from Jalen Hurts in yesterday's ballgame.
Yeah, no, I think you hit everything on the head there with Jalen Hurts. The biggest thing, as you mentioned, for me is the turnovers. No turnovers specifically. So you come into this game and you look at even the rest of this schedule, the quarterbacks that you're going to play. If Jalen Hurts can be the clean one in those games, the Eagles have a good chance of winning those games. As you saw yesterday, Eagles have a pretty much clean game. Obviously, Miles Sanders had the fumble in our own territory early on there, which gave the Saints a little bit of a spark. But as far as Jalen Hurts, you see Trevor Siemian, he comes out, 2 interceptions in this game, 2 huge plays that basically change the entire game. You allow the Saints, you give them the opportunity to shoot themselves in the foot, as you've seen us do many times this season, right? So when we take care of the ball, it just gives our defense, it gives them time to rest, and it makes them more flexible and more opportune for the big play in the long run. I guess my question to you, Dylan, after looking at this game yesterday, if there was obviously there's plenty of holes on this team. What do you think the most glaring hole is on this roster, though? Like, if you're going into the offseason, and obviously we talked about it with Hembo, we have plenty of we're going to be very flexible with the cap. We're going to have a bunch of draft capital. When I look at this team, for me, I feel like it's so clear. I wish they had like one more pass rusher, like an elite, pass rusher that can get to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I just think back to the Brandon Graham injury and what that could look like if he was still playing there. But what do you look at when you're looking at this team as far as just that glaring hole, even with winning? What is something that you would just love to see them improve on?
Skill position players. I got to phrase this correctly, because obviously that sounds like what generic fans want, and it's it's the sexy pick, and they don't want the offensive lineman in the first round. I'm not talking about that, but when you look at this team, don't get me wrong, the defensive line is probably the oldest group unit on the biggest age gap on your defense and on your roster as a whole. So you're going to have contingency plans, backup plans going forward. But like Hembo said, with Javon Hargrave, with Josh Sweat, you only have Brandon Graham all year. Fletcher Cox, showed up yesterday. They're winning their battles. It's the secondary and the scheme that's really playing off. But Darius Slay's playing at a Pro Bowl level. Rodney McLeod, hasn't done much, but he's not a detractor. He's not a negative. Ant Harris and whatever. Steven Nelson has been, whatever. The linebackers, since they've kind of, weeded out the Eric Wilsons, the Alex Singleton of the world haven't played much. It's kind of TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor's unit now. Yeah. They still, I would love a talented linebacker. But that you see what they have there. But when I go past Devontae Smith on this offense, Scotty, it's something that stuck out to me with what Hembo said, talking about, how they have a behemoth of an offense as of late. And sure, in the rushing attack, they do. And sure, the numbers and the points per game tell you that. But Scotty, you watch that offense. If you're an opposing defense, does anything scare you behind Devontae Smith and, Dallas Goedert, let's say? Scotty, there's nothing else. I know they are running the ball down teams' throats, and they are the best at it right now, and that's the reason they're able to put up the points they are right now. But you have Dallas Goedert, and you have a young Devontae Smith. Outside of that, no one else can do anything, Scotty. Jalen Reagor had another one catch for negative yard day. Quez Watkins is essentially a non-factor. It took a J-Jaw 23-yard catch and run to set up the Jalen Hurts touchdown in the fourth quarter. Greg Ward either doesn't play or doesn't get open to get the ball. They have nothing, Scotty, in terms of receiving, receivers or tight ends behind Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. And that to me is a scary thing. So like when he brought up, the Packers and the Bucs and the Rams, sure, maybe the style of football and the way they match up would favor the Eagles. Who the hell knows? In my eyes, they get blown out, Scotty. They get blown out. You know why? Because you don't have enough. You don't have enough to go out and beat the Rams of the world and the Packers and the Cowboys and the Bucs and the Cardinals. So to me, in the offseason, I think another top wide receiver is essential. And yeah, again, that's not spending one of the first round picks on it. That's not, signing. That's not making a huge trade. It's just getting something or two average wide receivers to pair with Goddard and Smith is something to fill in. But that's what sticks out to me the most because it's a glaring hole to me.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be, one of the holes at the top of my list as well. It's something I mentioned since the beginning of the season, which, we were all getting kind of hyped for Quez Watkins and Reagor for whatever reason at the beginning of the season, and that very quickly burnt out. That's obvious that is not the move at this point. And, even before the season, I thought they needed like a veteran presence. I don't think you use draft compensation to go out and get another guy. No. You've already, kind of took in your swings in the draft.
And you don't need more young wide receivers to try to develop. You need a veteran presence in that room that can go out and create separation on his own. You don't want to wait. You don't need a guy in the third round to develop and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Godwin would be on the top of my list this offseason, although he might stay with Tampa Bay. Now that Sutton, got extended, they extended Patrick as well, which was another big body receiver that we could have went after.
I mean, Scotty, if you just look at the numbers yesterday.
They must know something that we don't know in Denver with these receivers, signing those extensions. They're going for somebody this offseason if these guys are extending. Because that was my thought, with Sutton is why would he want to stay in Denver? It's a run-centric. It's Teddy Bridgewater. Like, what are we doing there? And he signed that big extension. So I would move to Godwin, Allen Robinson. There's a ton of names that are going to be available in the offseason. Michael Gallup's another guy that has been mentioned out of Dallas, which we'll just have to see who gets paid and who doesn't. But
Scotty, look at the numbers yesterday. Jalen Reagor had one catch for -1 yards.
I know.
Boston Scott had 2 catches for 2 yards. J-Jaw, a catch for 23 yards. Greg Ward, I don't even think he was targeted or played enough to see the ball. Quez Watkins, no catches.
Yep.
So Smith and Goddard, and again, you're one. And I know they're running the ball a lot, and they're run heavy and they're run first. So he's only going to throw 20 to 25 times. But you need something to where I said, what happens when that run's not there?
Yeah.
What happens when the run's not there against Tampa Bay in the playoffs, Scotty? What happens when it's not there against the Rams or the Packers? And Jalen Hurts has to drop back, and he goes, oh, my God. I had Devontae Smith and Greg Ward out here. I mean, I had Jalen Reagor and J-Jaw out here. Like it's a glaring hole. Again, I know people are going to disagree with me because the defense is not good. But when you look at if I gave you the room, right? If I said, okay, let's look at the secondary, Avonte Maddox, Darius Slay, Steven Nelson, Rodney McLeod, Ant Harris. That's your group, right? And then I'm going to give you the skill position players in the receiving room. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, J-Jaw, Greg Ward. What room's better? What room's got more talent in his defense?
Yeah,
okay. Defensive line, don't get me wrong. They got to add to every room this offseason.
Yeah.
They're going to have the money to do so. They're going to have the draft capital to do so.
Because, when I look at the secondary, I think of it like, would you bring back Ant Harris and would you bring back Steven Nelson next season since they're both free agents scheduled to be?
Yeah, but on the right type of deal. because, Steven Nelson, I feel like maybe signed here, that 1 year deal, that prove it year, go out so he can get a bigger deal. I'm not giving Steven Nelson a bigger like a multi-year, $30 to $40 million deal. I'm not giving Ant Harris a 3-year, $30-some million deal. I'm not doing any of that. Maddox has really impressed me, but you know why, Scotty? Because he's back where he belongs. But it is interesting, dude. So the offseason should be a fun one, but they have a fun and exciting last stretch of this season.
Yeah.
And we'll see what can happen, man.
Yeah, we're gonna enjoy it. We'll go week by week. We got the Giants this weekend, so like Hembo said, hopefully we don't go up there and stink it up in the Meadowlands.
They've won 3 of their last 4 rounds. And here's the thing, dude. If there's one thing they've proven this year, it's that they beat up on below average to below average quarterbacks, and they beat up on lesser talented rosters.
Yes.
They're not a great roster themselves, and they get shredded apart by good to great quarterbacks. But if you're the Taylor Heineke's of the world, the Daniel Jones, whether it's going to be Joe Flacco or Mike White, you know what I mean? Like they all winnable games. I'm not saying they go out and win the next 6, 7 games, because that would be ridiculous. That would be 8 or so wins, 9 wins to end the season. But they're in a position to do so. And like I said, my final thoughts on this game, Scotty, again, I was impressed with Jalen Hurts. I saw improvement. He put the game away, and he's really shown me good signs of growth. But the guy I'm more so impressed with over the last 2 weeks is the play caller and Nick Sirianni. Yeah. That game had playoff implications. It was a playoff atmosphere. You were winless at home. That is the number 1 rush defense in the entire National Football League. And this team showed up in a big way yesterday. And like Hembo said, he said what I said to you last week. If we're going to, if he's going to catch flack from us, if we're going to get on him for his lows, you got to give credit when credit is due. And right now, Nick Sirianni deserves all of the credit in the world. Scotty, final thoughts?
No, I thought you hit everything on the head there. Just, the Eagles going forward, it's something that you mentioned, subpar QBs. I look at these matchups throughout the rest of the season, obviously leaving out Dallas at the end there. We don't know what that will look like in reality, but all of these quarterbacks, I would rather have Jalen Hurts than, right? Like the dynamic ability of the run game with Jalen Hurts, I would rather have that than a Taylor Heineke, than a Joe Flacco, obviously. But even a Daniel Jones, I would take Jalen Hurts over Daniel Jones any day. So I'm looking at all these matchups, and like our Facebook friends have said there in the Facebook groups, they have a chance in this stretch to really make a mark and really make a name for themselves. And I think I was talking to some friends earlier today. What does that look like to get Jalen Hurts this experience in the playoffs if he is your guy going forward? You get Nick Sirianni in his first year of head coaching, if he was to take this team to the playoffs after a 4-11-1 season last year. The holes on this roster that we've continuously mentioned. Right. He takes his team to the playoffs. He keeps them resilient after a tough start, tough schedule in reality. And when we go into the offseason, how much does that affect which free agencies you can obtain in the offseason as well? So I think, for anybody out there that doesn't think it's, and we've crossed this, we've been at this crossroads as well, as far as, does making the playoffs benefit this team? Does going in the first round, playing a team like the Cowboys or the Rams, does that benefit this organization? And I think the resounding answer is yes. It ultimately keeps guys like Darius Slay bought in. You can keep him on the roster going into next season. Keep these veterans bought in. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, even. We don't know if how this season plays out will affect Jason Kelce's decision on his future. So get some positives, continue to get wins, get as close to the playoffs as you possibly can to create optimism around this roster, and it's going to help us out in so many facets as we go into the offseason. I'm excited as an Eagles fan again, and that's the number one thing.
Listen, man, you bring up a great point because, like you said, when it comes to free agency, because they're going to have a lot of cap space and cap room this offseason, no one would want to come here. If this was the situation of last year and they had all the cap space opening up after last year, money talks, obviously, and you were going to be able to bring some guys in. But who would really want to come here to compete, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And for any Eagles fans now, including myself, that would say, oh, well, what's the point? Well, here's the thing, Scotty. You just mentioned all great things, and it would be great to see Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts in a playoff atmosphere and get that playoff experience under their belts.
Yeah.
Because at this point of the year, when you already have what do we have? We're 5-6 now, right?
Yes.
And with this schedule, you got to figure let's just say the Eagles, even if they only won 2 more games the rest of the way, they're 7-10, and they would probably have 6 or 7 teams in the NFC alone with worse records than them in the NFC alone. So what is the difference from the, let's say, 15th pick, no playoffs, to, I don't know, 18th or 19th pick playoffs? You know what I mean? Like, it's at the beginning of the year, you could have made the argument, you know what, we're not good. There's no point making the playoffs. Let's try to aim for the top 10 pick.
That's actually a great point as well. Yeah,
but you're already here at this point. You're too dug in. Unless you were to lose the rest of the way with this schedule, is not happening.
Like, so if you're trying to lose.
Yeah, you're going to find yourself in the middle of the pack draft order-wise anyway. Why not? Any Eagles fan at this point that says, well, what's the point, blah, blah, blah. Well, the point is it's a playoff game. It's a playoff experience. Could help the offseason and the veterans stay. And, you bring up a lot of great points there. Scotty, Sixers play tonight in Sacramento versus the Kings. Kings just fired. Yeah, man, it's going to be hard to stay out for that one. This weekend took a toll on me, but
this West Coast trip has been miserable with those late games.
I know. Still no Joel Embiid. He will not return. I have not heard if Danny Green's back yet or not.
I didn't hear anything about it, so I would assume no.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on tonight's game? Sixers get a dub?
They got to, right? Like, I think this is one of the games on the road trip. You have to collect this W. We've taken enough L's. Obviously, we've been without Joel Embiid most of the trip, without Matisse Thybulle even most of the trip. You kind of stole one against Denver. I consider that a game that you probably shouldn't have won, considering Jokic was playing there. But then in a game against Portland where I thought they should win that game on the road, you drop that one. So it kind of balances out. You need to take care of business against the Kings because not a very high chance you're going to beat the Warriors on the last game of that road trip. So what? If you could get out of there, what would that be? 2-4 on that 6-game road trip?
Yeah.
Not the greatest, but you're playing without a lot of reinforcements there. So if you can collect this W against a team, you should beat them. They just fired their head coach. They've been having problems all year. And they just have like an influx of guards that it seems like they really don't know what to do with them. So I think this is a good chance to get back on track. Hopefully Tobias can continue playing the way he's been playing. Tyrese Maxey, obviously, which I really wanted to ask Hembo about Maxey, but we'll get him
next time.
I just wanted to hear his praise for Maxey because I'm sure he has some great stats that I have not tapped into yet. But no, I think they bounce back tonight, Dylan.
I agree, and I think it's more so of a have to kind of win. It's again. It's not a have to at this point in the season, but for this road trip, to bring it back home on a somewhat positive note, because like you said, odds are you ain't beating the Warriors. Wrap up that road trip. If Steph's maybe if Steph and Draymond sit like they did a couple nights ago, maybe you have a case to win that one. But
Harris is out too.
Oh, I did see that. Damn, I forgot to mention that.
What for?
I don't know. I think Keith Pompey tweeted out earlier that he's not expected to play tonight.
Interesting. Maybe it's just like a conditioning thing.
Maybe. But yeah, so very shorthanded. So again, it's like a have to, but how did they do it? I will say that Denver win was inspiring to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell they pulled that game out, but they did. And kudos to Doc Rivers and that coaching staff for having them up and ready to play in that one. So severely shorthanded and again on the West Coast. But guys, that is going to wrap up this episode, this Monday edition, this Victory Monday of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. As always, DSM Media and the Phaithful Phanatics are now brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Our friends at Manscaped offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with our promo code Fanatics at manscaped.com. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. This upgraded trimmer includes a multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery life last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with code Phanatics at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off with free worldwide shipping at manscaped.com using our promo code Phanatics. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will certainly thank you. Adam, appreciate you tapping in again, man. Great show. Go Birds. That is right, go Birds. And of course, guys, if you're new to the channel, head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. That is @DSM_media. You can find our link tree in our bio to take you to all of our other social media platforms, whether it be our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube pages, or if you listen to your podcast in audio edition on audio version, we are on Spotify and Apple podcasts as well. And again, go to our T public account in our link tree. If you want to celebrate the Eagles win, if you want to celebrate Bryce Harper winning the MVP award, we have a bunch of new and great designs up there on TeePublic. We got a couple MV3 designs up there right now. We posted earlier. We have a Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts designs up there as well. So if you want to support DSM Media, if you want to support any of the shows, if you want to go get some new Eagles or Phillies gear, check us out on TeePublic. Scotty, any last words?
No, just see you guys all tomorrow night around 7 p.m. I'll be with Vance. We'll break down the Sixers game tonight against the Kings, and we'll get into Sixers versus Warriors as well as some other news around the NBA. So be sure to tune in to Scotty Talks NBA tomorrow.
All right, guys, for myself, for Scotty, have a great night and go Birds.
Go Birds.